In this video, we're going to be unboxing a Jandy pump. This is the first time I'm going to be unboxing a Jandy pump on this channel, so I'm excited about that. And further to that, there's a bunch of unique features that this product has that I haven't come across yet in other equipment that I've been reviewing. So I'm really excited to get this one out of the box, but I can't do that yet because I don't know, you can maybe even see, can you see that yellow circle there? Let me read this to you. Important notice. No warranty if purchased online. This is not a do-it-yourself product. Installation by a qualified pool professional required. Register product at jandy.com/registration. So if you buy it online, you can't get any warranty. Well, actually, you're not going to be able to buy this online because Jandy were the company that spearheaded this whole movement to protect the local dealers and stop just wholesaling equipment online. And other manufacturers have kind of gone this way as well. If you buy a pump from another manufacturer, you might not get the same warranty, or maybe no warranty at all, because it's supposed to be installed by a pool specialist and then in theory sold to you by a pool specialist as well. But all of the other major manufacturers have like a line of products that they sell only to dealers. You can only get it through your local dealer. But they also have a line of strikingly similar products, which are available on the open line and internet and sometimes big box hardware stores and things like this. And there are sometimes minute differences between them, and different warranty periods might apply versus a brick and mortar pump or one that you purchased online, but not with Jandy. You are not going to find this product online. And if you did, there's an 800 number that Jandy operates that somebody can call in and report this product being sold online. They're serious about this. They don't want this stuff online. They consider this to be a professional product and something that should not be handled by inexperienced hands. And further, it really was the dealers, like the local pool people that you're dealing with. They're the ones that were really pushing hard against the manufacturers and saying like, look, I don't want to buy a pump from you for $500 through my wholesale distribution network, and then somebody just buys it on Amazon with next day shipping for $400. That's not cool. If you're a dealer, that feels a lot like you're getting screwed over, and that's what happened to a lot of pool pros. And so they were pushing back against this, and Jandy was the company that responded. They responded first, and they responded loudest and strongest. So if this is an important issue to you, then I guess you would want to know this, because Jandy has a very firm commitment to supporting their local dealership network, their local training academy, and they want professionals installing their equipment. They don't want do-it-yourselfers buying pool pumps and installing them. So with the warning out of the way, let's just go ahead and tear this box open and see what we have inside here. I mean, I could use a knife and cut it carefully, but I don't know, what kind of kid were you on Christmas morning? I was kind of like a mobile paper shredder of 3.5 feet tall. The requisite giant egg carton. All right. Before we do anything, we'll just get some of the peripherals out here. We've got the union connections, the instruction manual. I've said it in every video up until now with my unboxings. Well, I'll say it in this one too. Read the instruction manual. There's a ton of useful information in there that you're going to want to know. And I was talking about how this pump's only installed by professionals, so I'm not telling you to read the installation manual necessarily. There's an owner's manual as well. They're usually two different documents, and as the owner, there's a bunch of stuff you're going to need to know about this pretty fancy new pump that you're looking at buying. Pedestal base. I'll talk more about that pedestal base in a minute. Okay, let's see. Oh, thank you, Jandy, for putting a handy ergonomic handle. Okay, so I said I'd talk about the base. We'll just talk about it really quick here. There are 3 different configurations that you can use, maybe even 4. They really kind of built this pump with retrofit in mind. They want to make it as easy as possible. Let's say you've got a Hayward super pump. It was one of the most popular wet end designs ever sold. So the intake height and the distance between the intake and the outlet is unique to that pump. So if you have a different size pump and that now the pipes don't line up. Now you're into major surgery on all the pipes, and that's a problem. Maybe not a problem, but an inconvenience that you can avoid if there's a pedestal base and a riser system that you can use that will match this pump intake to the height of pretty much any swimming pool pump that you have currently. So that's great. That's going to minimize your installation time right off the bat. If it's a taller pump like a Dynaglass, or there's a couple of Stay-Rights that are the really tall ones. And so if you have one of those, then you're going to be using 2 pedestal bases here. Or you could use the small pedestal base, and that's going to fit like something like a Hayward Super Pump. Then you could use like the small pedestal base plus a set of risers that come with this pump here. And then you could fit to like an IntelliFlow. So any pump that you have, basically, Jandy's provided you a way here right out of the box that you're going to be able to match the existing pump intake height to this new pump that we're installing. That's actually a pretty good thing. Well, I mentioned risers. I haven't done it yet, but I'm pretty sure these are the risers right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so take a look at that. So let's say I need that middle of the road. The small platform isn't enough, but 2 platforms is too much. So right here, like imagine we're building a model. In the center here, I'm going to break this out, and these 2 guys out here, and they're going to plug in like Lego blocks into these spaces. You can see it's even embossed in the plastic. So you can see that. And that's just going to give you just a little bit more height, like not a lot. Was that 3/8 of an inch more height? But if you're a skillful plumber, that matters. You don't want strain on the intake pipe meeting the intake of the pump. That's not clean work. You're likely to develop a leak over time. It's just poor craftsmanship, which can be avoided by the options that Jandy's giving you out of the box here. That looked hard. It's really not. It's because it's sitting on a table, not bolted down, no pipes connected to it. It's actually part of the marketing literature for this pump is that you don't need a special tool to open it. Not all pumps do, but some of them do. Some of the popular models, you need a little tool to help you get the pump lid open. And with these larger handles here, the idea is that you won't need that special tool. Well, let's just spin it on the table and take a quick look at what we've got here. Ooh, fancy. I like that. I was very impressed to see the dial control knob, because not all variable speed pool pumps have that. A lot of them have like you're just like hammering on the button over and over again to scroll through, and I really appreciate the quick scroll settings with the Jandy design. That's a unique design. I haven't seen that other places. Bonding lug over here, electrical compartment available in the back, a side port available as well here. Got your winterization plugs down on the bottom there, 2 of them, standard protocol for swimming pool pumps. I really like this Speedset controller. It's a little bit different than a lot of the other ones that I've seen. And as I mentioned, I like the interface design. Stop, auto, clean, 1, 2. Little quick rundown instructions on the inside there. Very neat. All right, keep spinning it around here. I think I showed you. I just wanted to make sure you saw in the back there. That's where the electrical is there. All right. All right, so let's talk about some features here. There's a number of features here. I don't know which order I should talk to you about, because depending on what's important to you, the order of, operations will change here. Maybe we'll start with the model, right? Because this model here has this Speedset controller. This is very important. Okay, there's no way I'm just going to remember it, so I'm just going to read it, okay? This is the model number. VS FHP 270 DV2AS. I had that all memorized. I was definitely not reading that off screen. So what's significant here is that exact same model number minus the S would indicate that this pump is intended for automation control only. The Speedset controller here doesn't come included with that model. The model number denoted with the S at the end includes the Speedset controller, and all that just means is like standalone operation, right? I don't have an automation system or an app that I'm normally interfaced through. I want to interface with the pump manually, with my hands, with the pump that I own next to my filter. That's how you would do this. If you want to use the app, you absolutely can. You're not limited because you have the Speedset controller, but if you did not have the Speedset controller, you are limited. You can only interact with your pump through automation control like an app. Actually, well, I'll quickly look up the exact automation control systems that this model is compatible with. Aqualink RS, Aqualink PDA, Aqualink Z4, the JEP-R pump controller, iAqualink app, and the IQ Pump 01 app. Okay, that's actually a lot. So most of their modern day offerings and recent offerings for automation, this pump is going to be compatible with. I feel pretty confident in saying that this is Jandy's flagship pump. So it's also worth mentioning, because I thought this was pretty interesting. It caught me by surprise. So like other brands, this is a 3 horsepower or approximately 3 horsepower pump. Most equipment manufacturers for pool pumps will have a 3 horsepower or almost 3 horsepower pump offering. Most equipment manufacturers will also have a smaller pump offering because 3 horsepower is gigantic. But I don't think I've ever seen another equipment manufacturer offering a larger pump. Interestingly, this 2.7 horsepower model here is not the big dog in the lineup from Jandy. It's the middle of the road. They make a larger 3.8 horsepower model. The average residential pool owner, I'm not talking to you right now, you definitely don't need a pump that powerful. That is borderline or actual commercial grade power that you simply just don't need in a residential pool. Most pools don't need 3 horsepower as a filtration pump. The pools which would use a 2.7 horsepower variable speed pump like I'm looking at here would be a feature-rich pool. This pump would operate best from a system that has a little bit of resistance to flow, a more robust system. You have a heater and a solar heater and a in-floor cleaning system, or feature-rich stuff. That's what this pump's going to be used for. If you just have a minimal feature pool and you just need filtration, pump and filter, and maybe not much more than that, 2.7 horsepower is too much for you. That's very large, and you probably don't have the pipe size to support it. This pump should be operated with a minimum pipe size of 2 inches. 2.5 or 2 inches really would be the ideal as per what Jandy's thinking for this pump, and I tend to agree with that. You can use larger pipes as well. That's something that you could do. I would not use 1.5 inch, which is very common. Probably the majority of existing older swimming pools have 1.5 inch plumbing. And if that's what you had, I'm probably not running this pump. And if you did have 1.5 inch plumbing and you want to run this exact 2.7 horsepower pump, probably what I'm doing is I'm looking for how many suction lines. Do you have 3 or 5 active suction lines in your pool that are all 1.5 inch in size? Okay, we can now use this pump because you can upsize your trunk line to 2 inch or larger. But this pump is really made to move a lot of water. So kind of 2 inch minimum for your suction line is what I'm looking at if you want to consider using this pump for your pool. And talking about considering using this pump for your pool, remember, you can't buy this online. This isn't something that you can just head down to the local store and pick one of these up for yourself and install it. Genuinely, you will have to talk to a local pool professional in your area. It's the way Jandy wants it. It's the way the local pool professionals want it. And honestly, I'm a pool specialist myself. I tend to agree. That this is probably the best method. And I also understand your position. Stuff on Amazon super cheap, right? Why not just get something on Amazon? Because probably the best option for you isn't on Amazon. When I need new socks, I order them on Amazon maybe. I don't know. You know what? And I'm always disappointed with the quality. But I still do it. But you know what? When my water heater breaks, I don't order a new water heater from Amazon. I'm not even going to look. I'm sure they sell new water heaters if I want to pay for it. But I'm not going to go there because even if they're selling one, I don't want an inferior quality water heater or appliance, like a major home appliance. At this point now, with the cost of variable speed filtration pumps, this is a major home appliance. This is a major purchase. In fact, you're investing in this and you're expecting a return on that investment because pool pumps used to be a few $100s. Like, I was a guy in a truck driving around selling you pool pumps, and when I went to the store to buy the most common one that I was selling, it was like $270. That was my cost, 270 Canadian dollars. So like $199 US by current standards. And this pump is not $199, and there's no comparable models to it that are anywhere in that price range whatsoever. These are more complicated these days. Computer controlled, totally enclosed, fan cooled motors. It's a better, more robust product, and you are going to have to spend more to get one. So should I save the best for last, or should, I'm going to do that. Clickbaity, haha, you got to watch the end if you want to see the best thing I have to say about this pump. So let's talk about something else that is useful information for you first, something that you're going to need to know. WEF ratings. Do you know what that is? Okay, so probably not. It's relatively new. Most people aren't going to know what this is. This is weighted energy factor. And basically what this is, because I'm just going to summarize, I could be technical, but it doesn't help you to understand it. So I'm going to be less technical, but I'm going to help you to understand it better. When you're comparing pool pumps, if I had 3 of them on the table and it's 3 horsepower, 3 horsepower, 2 horsepower, which one's the best? And you'd probably say, like, I don't know, maybe one of the 2 3 horsepowers. And I would say, nope, you chose wrong. The 2 horsepower moves twice as much water as these 3 horsepower pumps, and it costs less to operate it doing it. Which is the best pool pump on the table? Do you see how the horsepower rating was not useful information at all? And unfortunately, that is like the de facto standard for what people look to when comparing pool pumps. Horsepower. And it'll go something like this. Your pool pump died, you looked at it, it was a 1 horsepower pump, and you're like, I'm going to get a 2 horsepower pump because it's going to be twice as good. We're making every wrong decision that we can make when we're choosing a pool pump here. This is literally not how it works at all. WEF ratings are intended to introduce a point of comparison, a measurement, which actually will help facilitate an apples to apples comparison of your pool pumps. Because horsepower ratings are not just can be misleading, I'll go so far as to say are purposefully, specifically misleading to make boastful claims about products that you want to sell a lot of. WEF actually measures something. WEF ratings measure how much energy it takes to move a given amount of water across a spectrum of different operational speeds. This is very functionally useful for a variable speed pump because at maximum speed, the variable speed pump would consume almost as much power as your old single speed pump. Were it not for that this is a incrementally more efficient design by nature, otherwise it's just going to be a straight comparison between the two. With WEF ratings, we need to account for the fact that as you turn down the speed of a variable speed motor, you drastically reduce the power consumption. The flow rate drops linear to the motor RPM dropping, but the flow rate does not drop in a linear way. It drops in a logarithmic way, and such that it's 8 times, theoretically, 8 times less power at half speed. So I turn down the motor RPM by half, the flow drops by half, the power drops by 8 times. Do you see how this works? So we need to factor this in somehow. You need to know that information to know how efficient this pool pump is so that we can make an apples to apples comparison. And that's what your WEF ratings are. And to summarize them, basically what it comes down to is we want to move as much water as possible for the least amount of money spent on electricity, right? So that's what the WEF is measuring. So how many thousands of gallons of water can we move for 1 kilowatt of power consumed? Essentially, this is the equation that we're looking at here. And so you're going to get a number. The WEF rating for this pump operating at 230 volts is 7.3. I had to check, but I was right. I knew it was 7.3. I didn't need to check. 7.3. And so if another pump had a WEF rating of 7, that is less good than a rating of 7.3. 7.3 is supposed to indicate more water moved. So the higher the WEF number, the greater the efficiency of the pump that you're looking at. And 7.3 is the WEF rating for this 2.7 horsepower, 230 volt pump. And why do I keep saying that? Because it matters. If this is a dual voltage pump, that is actually one of the features of this pump, 115 or 230 volts. But if you change the voltage supply, you actually change the WEF rating as well. So you're going to find that the WEF rating for a pool pump like this with dual voltage capabilities, it's going to come with 2 WEF ratings. And inherently, the 115 volt rating is going to be higher. Did you hear what I just said there? I just told you that if you have a lower voltage applied to this motor, your WEF rating goes up, indicating efficiency improvement. If you're paying attention to what I'm saying here, this sounds counterintuitive, but the reason why this is simply because at maximum speed, this 2.7 horsepower motor is consuming a crap load of energy. A much smaller motor, which is typically what you're going to get running at 115 volts, and I can get to that in a second. A much smaller motor, you would agree, would consume less power than a much larger motor, right? Are we both on the same page? When you run this pump or a pump like it at 115 volts versus 230 volts, you actually limit the operation of the pump. The performance curve of the amount of water that the pump moves changes. 230 volts looks like that. 115 falls off a cliff, because that's the nature of it. At the higher speeds, a 115 volt circuit is not likely to have the amperage. Like, you probably don't have a 115 volt 40 amp service line and breaker going to your pool pump. That's not how pool pumps get installed. It's likely got a 15 or 20 amp circuit limit for the amperage, which means that you can't have 3 horsepower. This is all just deep electrical theory. If you're a technical person, you're loving this. If you're not a technical person, you're not understanding this at all. Big motors use big power, and that makes the WEF rating look lower than it should when you compare it to a pump that doesn't have the same performance capability. It doesn't. It's like saying, that a brand new car is less fuel efficient than a car built 50 years ago. Like, probably not, right? It's probably not less fuel efficient. But if we factor into, this equation that your new car is a Cadillac with 450 horsepower and you exclusively put your foot to the floor, your mileage is not going to be as good as that 50-year-old car. That's kind of what's happening here. If you slam your foot to the floor in a pump like this, you're consuming a lot of power, and that's reflected in the WEF rating. Let me make a more useful comparison for you here. This pump has direct counterparts. This is very much like selling used cars. We got a new Ford truck, and we got a Chevy truck, and we got a Dodge truck. Well, we got a Jandy pump right here, and the WEF rating is 7.3. So what are the comparables? That's the key here. What are the comparables? The comparables to this pump are going to be something from Hayward and something from Pentair. Pentair is going to be the IntelliFlow 3 model, 3 horsepower, and from Hayward it's going to be the Omni VS 950, which is 2.7 horsepower. So very similar across the board horsepower-wise, but as we know, horsepower is a very poor reflection of how to measure the capabilities and efficiency. So what's the WEF ratings for these other pumps? Well, remember, this one has a WEF rating of 73 at 230 volts. At 230 volts for those other 2 pumps, I've got this written down here, Pentair IntelliFlow 3 at 230 volts, which is the only way that 3 horsepower model can operate, is going to be 7.1. 7.1 WEF. Very comparable, slightly less efficient according to the WEF rating. The Hayward pool pump is an exact match at 7.3 for the WEF rating for their Omni 950 2.7 horsepower model. So again, basically what I'm saying here is that it's a very close field. The efficiency of these large motor variable speed pumps from the big 3 recognized manufacturers are all very, very comparable. almost no difference in terms of the efficiency from one to the next. And overall, that's a good thing for you. So this is just one thing that you don't have to really worry about. No matter what new pool pump you buy, it's going to be pretty darned efficient. And that's actually what these numbers represent. You're like 7.3, 7.1. What does it all mean? It means it's pretty darn efficient, and you're actually going to have a substantial reduction on the cost of your electricity to operate your pump after you buy and install one of these. Talking about the WEF ratings here, I should acknowledge that at 115 volts, let's say that's how you're going to operate your pool pump. You have a 115 volt circuit and you're going to buy a 2.7 horsepower pump, which doesn't make any sense to me, but like you did and you installed it. And the WEF rating for this pump is 8.7. Going up, indicating greater efficiency, but also it's higher because, as I mentioned before, this pump is just less powerful when operating at 115 volts versus 230 volts. Making a direct comparable here, the IntelliFlow 3 does not come in a 115 volt option. You would have to buy a smaller pump, like a 1.5 horsepower, so I won't make a comparison there. The Hayward Tristar 950 does come with the 2.7 horsepower motor does come with a 115 volt, 230 volt comparable, so that's great, so we can make a direct comparison, and it's 10.1 WEF for the Tristar 950 operating at 115 volts. We are approaching useful information here. When you buy and install a pool pump, maybe you're starting to see why Jandy's like, you know what, this is not do-it-yourself level stuff. I'm only halfway there on the equation of even giving you the information you need to draw some sort of meaningful comparison from one pump to the next. We're kind of getting there, but we haven't even talked about how much water the thing's moving yet. So maybe we could just talk about that real quick, and then we've covered some ground here. Like I talked about the WEF and the efficiency and things like that, but without knowing how much water the pump is physically moving, you can't make an apples to apples comparison. Because remember I said I had the 3 pumps out before. What made one of the pumps good is that it moved more water than the other one. Like how much power the pump consumes is good. We want to know that. But how much water is this thing actually capable of moving, and then compare that to other pumps? And it's hard because pumps don't come with a number that says maximum speed is 200 gallons per minute. It's not how pumps work. You would have to go to what's called the performance data curve, and it's something that the manufacturer would make available to you. It's an engineering document that will simply show you, 2 axes, and one is going to indicate the feet of head resistance, and the other is going to indicate gallons per minute. And the more resistance to flow, the less gallons you're going to be getting out of the pump, because it's just harder. It's pushing harder. It's just a more difficult job for the pump, so it moves less water. So what we do here, we now choose some suitable variable numbers here. 30 feet of head resistance and 60 feet of head resistance. These are numbers I like to go to often when I'm looking at pool pumps, because these represent kind of like an average in-ground swimming pool, and then maybe a more robust in-ground swimming pool installation. So 30 feet of head for an average one, 60 feet of head for a more robust one. How much water will this pump move at 30 feet of head and at 60 feet of head? That's important information we need to know. 30 feet of head, this pump moves 94 gallons per minute. At 60 feet of head, that number drops incrementally down to 87 gallons per minute. The fact that there's not much difference in this pump between 30 feet of head and 60 feet of head, and it's moving almost the same amount of water in both situations, that's actually significant to me, because it indicates a pump that has the capability to run at a lower speed, but also run at a much higher resistance to flow and still move a lot of water. Not a lot of pumps could do that. For example, a medium head pump might move a similar amount of water at 30 feet of head. But if we look at a 60 feet of head example for a medium head pump, it's going to drop off drastically, less than half the amount of flow. Meanwhile, here, we're just within a few gallons per minute of each other, indicating to me that this is more of like a medium high or a high head pump application, which is a good thing. I think Jandy makes this pump in mind with robust swimming pools with a feature rich, a lot of stuff going on, in-floor cleaning systems, waterfalls, all kinds of stuff. That's what they've designed this pump hydraulically for. That's what it's better for. And I don't know about this, but I did read it in the marketing material that this latest design that they've come out with the FloPro here is 20% more hydraulically efficient than the previous design. So they've gone a long way here in their R&D to try to come to the table and come to the market with a more efficient design product, which is important. I think efficiency of pool pumps and pool pump motors is more of a talked about issue for pool owners than it has ever been, historically speaking. So again, I like apples to apples comparisons. Let's talk about the comparables real quick and see if this pump stacks up to the other ones that you could be looking at buying that are similar to this pump in design. So again, we look at the Hayward and the Pentair models because they're Jandy, Hayward, and Pentair. It's always been the big three in the swimming pool industry. And so if you're going to make a comparable list, those are the names that have to be on the list. So we're looking again at the Tristar 950 from Hayward, and we're looking at the IntelliFlow 3, the latest offering from Pentair. At 30 feet and 60 feet of head, 230 volt installation. Again, this pump here, 94 and 87. That's how much, 94 gallons per minute and 87 gallons per minute at 30 feet of head and 60 feet of head. The Hayward pump, 86 gallons per minute and 84 gallons per minute. It's a little less. It's comparable, but it's a little less. Pentair with the IntelliFlow 3 comes in at 86 and 84 gallons per minute for the 30 feet and 60 feet of head. Again, a little less, but comparable overall. Remember how I talked about the electrical connection makes a difference to the amount of power the pump has? Let's look at that for just 1 second and imagine that this wasn't 230 volts. This is that now we're talking about a 115 volt installation for this pump at 30 feet and 60 feet of head. What happened to those flow rates? Well, at 115 volts, this pump would be 72 gallons per minute at 60 feet of head. That's interesting. So at 30 feet of head, actually the numbers are basically the same, but at 60 feet, there was a drop off. At 115 volts, there wasn't the power to provide that amount of flow. And so now we have a new point of comparison here, and that is 72 gallons per minute. If this pump were hooked up at 115 volts, and you had a 60 feet of head resistance to flow in your system design, a more robust swimming pool installation. The Pentair IntelliFlow 3 doesn't have 115 volt, so I can't make a comparison there. The Tristar 950 does, so I can make a comparison. And the Tristar 950 comes in at 62 gallons per minute, 60 feet of head, 115 volts. So again, less comparable, but less than the pump that I'm looking at here. Let's fly through a couple of the features here. So the pump comes with unions, which is good. These are 2-inch threaded unions. They go on there. There is an inside thread, which is a 2-inch female thread. So you would use a 2-inch male adapter if you wanted to do such a thing, but you don't need to because they provided some quick connect unions for you, and that's great, 2-inch in size. This is a totally enclosed fan-cooled motor, and that's great for a lot of reasons. It's not going to be exposed to ambient moisture and dust like an old school pump design would be, but all the modern variable speed pumps are designed like that. But this one is just a little bit different. So this one has a 0 tolerance for space. Jandy built this with space in mind. They wanted the pump as short as possible, 24.5 inches long, and a 0 tolerance for clearance. So in theory, it can be essentially backed right up to a fence or something like that. It doesn't need the rear to draw the air in. It draws air from the top, the sides, the bottom, all around so that it's not limited in space. You can use it in tight installations. And as a pool pro, that's half of them. Everybody crams their pool equipment into a too small to fit this pool equipment space for some reason. Like, I get it. I'm a pool guy. I don't mind having more pool equipment room. For you, that's just an eyesore. You just want it to go away. And Jandy has designed this to fit into the smallest possible space. Notes. Oh, this is an exciting part. I wanted to get to this part because I didn't have an answer here and I was excited to know it. So the weight of this pool pump. Again, I like comparables, right? Is there any information to be gleaned here? I think maybe I can show you a little bit of something interesting, but I don't know how much this pump weighs because I found 2 different pieces of information indicating how much this pump weighs. 53 pounds. That's what I was going to go with. That's what I was under the impression that this pump weighs. But I actually think that that might include packaging materials and stuff like that. But that's okay because the other pumps that I'm going to give you the weight for, I believe also includes the packaging material. So I'm going to go with 53 pounds, though I think this thing might actually weigh 46. I'm going to weigh it in a minute. Let's find out. 53 is what I'm going to go with because that creates the comparable point to the other pumps. The Pentair IntelliFlow 3 is a similar weight coming in at 55 pounds. The Hayward pump, the Tristar 950, comes in at 65 pounds. Why is this significant? Well, here's a point of comparison. The Black & Decker 3 horsepower variable speed pool pump that you can buy on Amazon, install it yourself, has long warranty, all that good stuff. You know what? That pump weighs 36 pounds. It's also a 3 horsepower like these other ones. You see how it's not really in line with the rest of these numbers here, and I do believe that includes packaging materials also like the rest of these. That's half the weight of the Hayward pump. And this is something I can attest to. I've noticed this before as I'm moving these pumps around. That pump is much lighter. I am not a pump engineer, and I can't tell you just why that's a bad thing. But you know what? I get a feeling it's not a good thing. I think that the magnets inside of these totally enclosed fan-cooled motors are heavy. And I think large, robust magnets, and lots of them, indicate a good thing. That's my caveman level knowledge of the engineering that's gone into this pool pump here. And I think it comes down to a simple equation. Heavy is good. I think heavy is good. I want to weigh this thing. Does this thing weigh 53 pounds? Can you pass me that scale over there? Not for legal trade, so we won't hold them too accountable here. 44. Yeah, so I think their 46 rating was the correct one, and the other numbers indicate with packaging materials, which is fine. This isn't really a true point of comparison, but still an interesting point of comparison nonetheless. So some basics here. The Speedset controller can rotate, so that's something that we can take this thing, we can rotate it in all 4 directions, so you can have it fit to your swimming pool installation. You don't have to be reading the screen upside down. So that's important to know if you're going to be interacting with the pump directly versus using automation or an app exclusively for operation and scheduling of your pool pump. As far as the rotation goes, it's got a little diagram indicating here, just give it a counter turn. Of course, it would be helpful if it was, there we go. So then you take it out. All of your connections on the back there. And let's say I want it to aim towards me here, because that would be convenient. There we go. And so now I've facilitated this. Or again, if you needed to have it aim this way. It's actually kind of fun how quick and easy they've made that there. There we go. Quick and easy, as I was saying. It actually is quick and easy because normally this would involve screwdrivers and mounting and moving. So I appreciate that that's actually quicker than every other pump. I gotta say, a lot of times when I make these videos, it's a lot of the same stuff. You know, I'm just, all the equipment kind of has the same features. Jandy really did a good job. This pump has unique stuff that I've not seen or talked about with any other pool equipment that I've had on my table here. Speaking of scheduling, this thing has a pretty robust scheduling ability, and that's something that I think we're finally getting to the big reveal, like the big thing this pump is doing that I'm not seeing other pumps doing, or very minimally so, or let's maybe just call this industry leading would be another way to say that. What this pump can do in terms of its scheduling is more advanced than a lot of the other pumps that I deal with because of a specific function. This pump includes relay controls, 2 of them. And this is important. When you go to install your new variable speed pump, you used to probably have like a little mechanical time clock. That was a really common installation. And you would use that to turn the power on and off to your pool pump, right? Sounds simple? Modern pool pumps, you don't do that. You don't turn the power off. We got like programming and scheduling and stuff like that. We just want to supply the power all the time. It turns itself on and off as needed. It doesn't need you to mechanically be throwing a switch back and forth. Further to that, the switch kind of messes with stuff because now everything's coming from this switch, but we actually can't use that switch anymore. What if you have a salt chlorinator? Right? This is really common. So many pools with salt chlorinators out there. It used to be that when that switch for your pump turned on, the power to the salt cell went on. And when the power to the pump went off, the power to the salt cell went off. It was actually kind of really easy from an electrical wiring standpoint. We now have 24 hours a day power applied to this pump. How do we regulate the power going to the salt cell exactly? Do we just supply power to it all the time? I mean, some people do that, and then you rely on the mechanical tine, the flow switch inside to detect a state of flow and begin to generate chlorine. And if that tiny little tine were to become fouled with, I don't know, a piece of hair, for example, it could detect flow when there is no flow, and then you would be creating chlorine in this enclosed PVC chamber, and Part of the byproduct of that electrolysis process is the generation of hydrogen. So now you're generating hydrogen in an enclosed space without any movement of water. And I think you can see that's not a good thing. And so there should be a better way to control the function of your salt chlorinator. And do you know how you normally would do it? You'd buy an automation system, of course. They're a few $1,000s, but they're really keen and you'd love them for your pool. It provides a host of benefits. But what if you really didn't need that? You just need to safely control your salt chlorinator. You really don't want to buy an automation panel, not even an entry-level automation panel, because this is just an entirely separate piece of equipment you now need to buy, and you already spent handsomely for this piece of equipment. That's where a pump like this is an advantage. It has a relay control. You can wire the salt chlorinator to this pump. This pump will provide the on and off control for that 115 volt circuit for your chlorinator. It's a really fantastic thing. So how it works is this. There are two auxiliary relays on here. One turns on at 1725 RPM, one turns on at 2250 RPM. And I do believe those are numbers that you can get in there in your speed set here and change for different applications if your pool requires different speeds for different applications. I know why they chose those numbers, 1750 and 2250, because the 1725 represents your half speed. That's half speed for the motor, but it's also certainly going to be enough for any saltwater chlorinator on the market to be getting enough flow to operate. That's why it's kind of choosing that number. The higher number, the 2250, very likely relates to a pressure-based vacuum cleaner system. Jandy were the company involved, Zodiac, Jandy, or Fluidra. I'm not even sure which one of them would be the most technically correct to say started this, but they were the ones who really pushed the booster pump controlled pressure-based vacuum sweeps. It goes around the pool, vacuums the pool, keeps everything clean, but it needs a booster pump to operate. So because Jandy's systems inherently all have this extra pump as part of the design, we need some way to control that, because that extra pump is normally fed somewhere from this pump. So the main filtration pump is going to provide the flow to that booster pump. So what happened if that booster pump turned on and this one was off or didn't have enough flow to provide that booster pump the juice it needed? Well, you'd probably burn out that booster pump, if not both of the pumps, and so that would be a bad thing. That's why the Speedset control has that relay, so that you can wire your booster pump such that it won't turn on unless you've achieved 2,250 RPM or an RPM of your choosing. It basically is just a perfect little design that facilitates operation but inherently protects itself in the way that it does so. So it's a pretty keen setup, and it's probably the reason why Jandy is one of the first pumps that I've seen on the market that has these relay controllers built in. Because that little equation I talked about with the wiring of the salt cell and how are we going to do that when we used to have it on a mechanical timer and now we're not going to be having the pump with intermittent power, that's actually a problem. And it's really been a difficulty that a lot of pool owners have had to deal with, and this pump would solve that entirely. Heck, you could have your salt chlorinator and you have an entirely second relay available for some other on-off control for a piece of pool equipment you have. It's a keen feature, and it's a defining one to me, and one that would be enough alone to choose this pump specifically. There is a limit, and that is 11 amps. So whatever it is that your auxiliary relay is controlling, it's not going to be able to exceed 11 amps, which it's not going to need to be. Even if you have a booster pump for a vacuum sweep system in your pool, it's not going to be a 3 horsepower pump, so it doesn't need to exceed 11 amps. The pump does come with a RS485 cable quick connect, so you do have automation capabilities and ability to communicate with this pump with your automation system. Primarily, most people using a pump like this are probably just going to be using the Aqualink app, because Jandy is one of the first companies to really be pushing this online app or online log into your pool system, control, make changes to your filtration settings, things like that, and have that all centralized in one Jandy controlled hub. And it's something that I think that definitely 10 years from now, all pool equipment is going to operate like that. So I think it's fair to say again that they were industry leading there, because it's, as a specialist in this industry, is with certainty in mind, I say to you, that's what it's going to be in the future. I don't think in the future you're going to be going out and manually, like a caveman, plugging in instructions to your pool pump. You're just going to type it in while you're sitting on the crapper, and that's going to be that. So this pump does a lot for you, and it has a couple of defining unique features. It not being available online is definitely a defining unique feature. Having the dual relay availability, defining unique feature. Very comparable across the metrics that we looked at for power consumption, WEF, flow rates, things like that. Even the weight of the pump, very comparable to everything else. But defining unique features is enough alone to make you want to make a purchase. And I guess maybe I'll mention this because I normally say this in the beginning of the video and I didn't mention it. I clicked the thing that says paid sponsored or whatever, but they don't pay me to say this. Nobody from Jandy has given me one single penny to say anything good or bad about this pump. I just want to make sure that I'm clear to you. Like, I'm not being paid to say these things, and that's why you should buy a Jandy pump. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you guys can all start paying me anytime. Like, I've got PayPal. You could just send me I've got super thanks. Send me a super thanks right now, Jandy or pool owners. And you could super thanks me the deed to your house if you feel like I'm doing a good job over here, and I'd be fine with it. But the reality is that nobody's paying me for these endorsement videos. Really, what I'm just trying to do is make you aware of the options available to you. And this is definitely one. If you're a modern pool owner, especially if you've got kind of more of a robust, larger, feature-rich swimming pool, there are a host of reasons why you might want to look into the Jandy FloPro 2.7 horsepower variable speed pump. If you found this information helpful, please be sure to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can check out my website, swimmingpoolsteve.com.